But if you missed it, we're going to be hosting two separate veterans entrepreneurship program sections in the spring. Those applications are already open. So, veteran business owners, hope to see you applying. That entire program is totally subsidized by Veterans Florida and provided at no cost to the participants.
That's pretty awesome. What's going on this campus, man? And FAU football's back. I'm beginning some text messages from some friends are like, how's the football over there? I'm like, go for a game. It's pretty reasonably priced and it's a fun night with the family.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's easy because it's not, too crazy yet,
Yeah.
maybe one day, but you can easily get in and have a good time.
Okay. Well, let's get into our guest today. This is the Shrimp Tank, right? We find the do's and don'ts of running a business. It's where street smarts and book smarts collide. We have Ben Berman in the studio. He was introduced to me by another podcaster that has done like something crazy, like 700-800 episodes. I was on a meeting with him on Zoom. He's like, my buddy Ben Berman just moved down to South Florida. He's exited multiple times. You guys got to connect. And then real quickly, I'm one of those people like, okay, let's make this happen. He connected us over email. And then before you know it, you came out to that Tech Hub event and we met in person. And then I'm like, let's get you on the Shrimp Tank. And here you are today. So Ben Berman, welcome to the Shrimp Tank. And to kick things off, just tell us about your current business and then go back in time. I want to hear your journey as an entrepreneur. Okay.
Sure. Absolutely. So I am first and foremost, I'm a expert EOS implementer, and that is a designation they chose, not one I gave myself. So it's trademarked. Just means I've done a whole boatload of sessions with a whole boatload of clients, and in that business, I help.
Is it easy operating systems? What's EOS? Right? What? Tell our audience.
Oh, well,
for most people, they have zero clue what EOS means, right?
Yeah. So we actually have some books here in case people are curious, but it's basically an operating system for the business, a people operating system. So it's a way to get everyone aligned with where they're going on the strategy, getting people actually executing against that strategy, driving accountability. And then usually once everyone has a plan and a strategy and we're holding people accountable, there can be friction. So it smooths out some of that friction. And I found has been a really good diagnostic tool, both sort of like a general practitioner, raises the overall health and then identifies the needs in the business.
Kevin, you got to love this type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like so much data driven material, and for entrepreneurs that try to just wing it. And you're like, no, you got to have systems in place, especially when you scale, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the companies I work with are a little bit fast and loose with just about everything, but that's one of the things that our accelerator program is for, is to button up some of that. But that process should continue, even as they're graduating from there. There's still much to do, typically, in terms of infrastructure, strategy, personnel. They still have a ways to go, but we like to think we help them along the way, anyways.
So Ben, let's go back in your history as an entrepreneur, right? Did you have this in your blood as a young child? What did you do after you graduated college? You went to Duke, right? Tell us a little bit about the journey.
Yeah, so it was a family learning for me. My dad was an entrepreneur, although he wouldn't call himself that. Yeah. He's an attorney who represents firefighters when they get injured. So my mom always referred to him as the hero to heroes.
And that's awesome.
Yeah,
I might know him. I used to run around New York City, when building my financial service business. Right?
Yeah,
I would go into firehouses all the time, speak with members about life insurance and then wealth management stuff. I'm like, when you retire, we're gonna do your 457. We're gonna roll to an IRA. What about a Roth IRA conversion? Things of that nature. So I actually have hundreds of members that I've worked with. So we have a lot in common. That means.
Yeah, definitely. And he'll tell the story. So he was a hero, obviously, to the heroes, the firefighters themselves, but also to us, because he literally started, it was 3 dudes. He would say 3 guys in a phone, and was able to build a pretty massive firm and really have meaningful impact, not just for his clients, but on some of the laws and the legislative side of things. Yeah. So seeing him come home every night, seeing how important it was for him to make sure that the job was done right, that his clients were treated well, really inspired me. And you said fast and loose before. So I was all over the place, bouncing off the walls as a kid, pretty typical entrepreneur, and was starting businesses almost as soon as I could talk. So we were talking before the show that one of our first businesses, and 1,000 failed businesses along the way, just a graveyard, was starting recording studio in my basement. Basically, my brother was an audio engineering phenom.
Yeah.
And he took carpet to like make soundproofing and was jerry rigging all kinds of stuff. So from there throughout, I had all different projects. And then finally, as I started to hit my late teens, we started to get some, no pun intended, traction on those businesses.
So tell us about like after college though, like when you really got into business, right?
Yeah.
What was your first business you operated, and was it a success? Was it a failure? Kind of share some stories.
So in college, I helped scale. We were also joking before the show about how everyone has an apparel business now in college. I was involved in as a founding member of a custom apparel business on that leadership team, and then I went and did it myself. And I figured it's going to be easy, no problem. It was fine. It was not spectacular.
Sure.
But I got brought in after some of my other work to turn a company around. I didn't know I was turning it around at the time, but I got brought into a company in the fine art space, the licensed fine art. So Disney, Marvel, things like that. And when you think of fine art, you think of galleries and wine tastings and so forth. Not that. This was more like we'd show up at Comic-Con, do 100 grand in sales, do something ridiculous. But as part of that business, on my third day of work, kind of a little bit of a low touch owner. So I got brought in. One of my sales guys, who at the time was more than twice my age, tried to punch out another one of my sales guys, like legitimately.
That just means you're at the right place.
Yeah,
Right? When you're that age, like this place is awesome.
Yeah. Well, I
This
grew up
type of action.
boxing, so
Yeah.
it wasn't the violence that
Nowadays,
bothered
it
me.
doesn't happen anymore. No one's throwing punches as often.
I think that's probably for the better. Depends
Probably.
on which business you're looking in. But I'm proud to say, using the system that I now coach on and teach, we were able to turn that business around. And the benefits was we broke revenue records, we broke profit records, but that continues to happen in my absence. So it's not a function of me. It was what we were able to build.
Gotcha. So that business that you started with, you had a small ownership in. You were in college, or you were out of college at that point?
I was in college for that
In
one.
college.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So that's pretty unique that you already had ownership of a brand while in college.
I had actually multiple things going, which was pretty typical.
Didn't you go to college to party? I'm confused. Most
So-
people go there and they're like they study,
Yeah.
right? They cram for tests, right? And then what do? They go to the bar.
Well,
right?
so
In the basketball games, if
Or the
you're a
basketball
dude.
game, football game,
Yeah.
right, Kevin? Is this still common at this university?
It
That's what I did.
was coming at the University of Florida when I went there.
I have no doubt.
And I was just always thinking about just making enough money to get by through the semester to pay for my tab at the bar.
That's right.
Right. So
Yeah.
you were a little different. You were actually sacrificing a lot of those nights to work, it sounds like.
I think I had a pretty healthy work-life balance. So there was not a lot of rest involved in that, which probably in retrospect was not great, but it would party all night, get up in the morning, grind away. And I think what it taught me and kind of where I'm at now is helping people see that maybe you don't have to put in 16-hour days to be successful.
Okay.
So sort of by force, I had stumbled upon this. How do I get as much leverage out of my time as possible?
Okay. And then what was your biggest win, right? Was it like going back, not this company that you're doing now, but
Mhm.
was there that moment in your 20s, right, or your 30s where like you started a business from scratch or you bought a business? Kind of where's the biggest win so far?
Yeah. So it has to be with my brother, who actually is my brother who's adopted. And just to give you some background, he grew up in the ghetto, literally as classic of a story out of a movie you can imagine. Experienced homelessness for a while, was selling crack, like really full on.
Yeah.
And at the time, he was a warehouse clerk, like sort of lowest of the low, taking all the abuse in that business I got brought into. And I saw something in him. He was about to leave, do-rag, permanent
Sure.
scowl on his face. He was about to leave. And I said, "Why don't you stick around for just a little bit?" And took him under my wing. At the time, I was young enough to not know I didn't know anything myself.
Yeah.
But we sort of stumbled our way through the business and were able to complete that turnaround. But most powerfully, about a year in, my parents adopted him as my middle brother. He calls my mom, he calls my dad, and I'm proud to say he just bought his first business himself.
Nice.
So yeah, that to
That
me
is
is my
pretty
biggest
fun.
win.
And it's not about the money. When people say win, right, they're immediately thinking you were about to say, I sold a business for $8 million and walked away with 2. Right? No, you said it was the relationship, having someone come into your family, and that's the proudest moment of your life, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
in business.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
That's cool. Kevin, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, very interesting story. So why don't you fast forward us to today and tell us a little bit more about what you've got going on?
Sure. Yeah. So like I said, I'm an EOS implementer, which means I've been in front of a lot of clients and sort of been through the craziness, fast and loose, into fairly buttoned up, but still have a sandbox to play in. Really, I say like getting them to be able to go on a vacation and not take their cell phone. Right. A friend of mine said that, and I was like, that's exactly what we do. And in having gone through and seen that movie over and over again, I saw that there were additional opportunities in the marketplace where small businesses often have a hard time finding the right vendors for them and the right solutions. When they find the right solutions, they don't always plug into whatever they're doing currently. And it's been wonky. I've seen it happen too many times. So I got sick of it and got sick of it on my client's behalf. And I decided to do something about it. So now I in addition to doing EOS work, I help bring solutions to my clients and others who really help fill some of the gaps that are often identified as a company is scaling and growing.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. That's a lot of what I do. It's my role at the
Yeah,
accelerator,
yeah,
right? I know all the vendors for startups needs, whether it's intellectual property or corporate legal, HR, basics, fundamentals, and typically people need different resources at different stages. I know all the startup ones, and I can save people a ton of time and energy. And they don't have to interview a bunch of people and then hire the wrong person and then maybe do that 2 or 3 more times. I can just say, no, just go here and be done with it. It'll be affordable and it'll be right for this stage. And if you get to another stage, maybe somebody else. But
yeah,
right now, given your financials and everything, I know this is for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, at the same time, I'm dealing, generally speaking, second, third stage, so there's
Yeah.
scaling or there's a succession plan going on, and the same thing. I appreciate anyone who has at the early stage because it's just a continual stage of growth. And I was talking to someone today. There are very few companies and people who are truly self-made, often community made. So yeah, very 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 powerful.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree.
Okay, so let's dive into real examples for a second,
Mhm.
right? You meet someone at a networking event, right? And you know you could help them,
Yeah,
right? But they don't really know you could help them, right?
sure,
You're like, oh, I could do this, I could help you. Like, I get like 20 million messages that say the same thing that you're just said,
sure.
on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I could increase your business by 400%, within 12 months. Let's set a meeting up. Like, first, how do you get the meeting,
Mhm.
right? Because most people just say, no, too good to be true, right?
Sure.
Next, once you do get the meeting, kind of walk us through the flow. Like, how do you actually onboard a client? What is the time length of onboarding a client? Is to do years of networking to finally get that client to say yes? And then what is the structure of the business? Like, how do you charge? Is it a month to month basis? Is it 1 year, signed agreement, for example? Because it takes time to implement these things, and you don't want to waste your time. Be like, hey, I'm going to set this all up and do all this heavy lifting, learn about your business to find out a month later you're fired,
Yeah.
right? So kind of go through the entire process of the business.
Absolutely, and I'll do it for both, right? Because there's
Absolutely.
if you think about it, EOS is the center, right? So generally speaking, I think companies need to have a mechanism to get things done, align their teams, and hold
Yeah,
people accountable, whether that's EOS or something else.
sure.
It just so happens that over 100,000 companies are running on EOS, so there's a pretty good social proof there, and chances are they know someone in their network and so on, where they likely, if they're second stage, have at least heard of it or heard of the book. On that side, it's just a matter of sort of we operate with a help first mentality. So it's
Okay.
listen, first of all, go take this book, read the first 9 pages, and then take the test and tell me what you think. And I'm happy to go over no commitment, and they do that. And sure enough, they realize, oh, I'm great here. I have some work to do here because everyone has their strengths. And then at that point, usually it's okay, I would like to find out more, but I'm not quite sure how. So we'll have a conversation, really get clear about what they're trying to do, what their obstacles are, and essentially where they're at
Yeah.
and where they want to go. And then we have a meeting where we go in and for 90 minutes invest our time in theirs to really make sure they understand the details of the tools. Because if we can coach them and give value proactively, it's going to be that much more
Well,
effective.
the meeting is free.
Meeting is free.
I like that because so often entrepreneurs who don't have enough clients try to charge upfront for that first
Oh,
meeting. And I always say, you got to show your value. I was a financial advisor,
yeah.
my first, 10 years of the business, and every meeting was free. And I would just do what you did,
Yeah.
90 minutes at the client's home or at my office, right? Or on phone calls or on Zoom meetings, and just everything was free, 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 because I had to shine a light on like poking holes in their situation, be like, look, here's an idea, right? What do you like best about that idea? And then all of a sudden they turn around like, that is a great idea. I'm like, how do we proceed with something like that? I'm like, well, this is how we're going to proceed.
Right.
Right. And then I pick out something out of my briefcase and be like, here it is. Here's
Yeah.
how to proceed. Like I was ready.
Yeah.
And too often entrepreneurs are not ready, right? They have no correct path, like you just said, with that 90-minute meeting, and then flow them through some type of sale opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So I like that you put that, because too often entrepreneurs are watching too much shit on social media and be like, I got to charge my value. It's like, you're not valuable yet. Slow down, right? You gotta show that value first. So
Yeah.
I'm happy you brought that up.
Yeah, I know you know it, and I coach other implementers and others in business development, generally
Sure.
speaking, and it that value add is it. Not only is it a good business strategy, it's also a good soul strategy. Like everyone knows the person who's like sort of wheeling and dealing used car sales.
Absolutely.
I don't know how that person feels at the end of the day, but I presume it's not as well as someone who's like, hey, I just added a whole bunch of value, and I'm going to trust it's going to come back my way.
Higher turnover.
Yeah,
That's what I see.
yeah,
is
oh
They
yeah,
feel great. They sold something and then falls apart over 6 months to a year. You
right.
can't trust them. It's all, they're great salespeople, but long term, there's no consistency, and then they get bad mouth behind their backs, right? And they can't get referrals. So it's always new sales.
Yeah,
It's always, they're relying on those systems on LinkedIn and Instagram, outbound marketing. It's like, no, the best outbound marketing is your clients referring you word of mouth who say that you've done a great job. So you always see those differences, I find.
Yeah, I think you're actually onto something, because so the next step for the other businesses is we have the check to see, can you get stuff, basically GSD, can you get stuff done, right? Can you get stuff done, hold people accountable, have a project management mechanism to align towards where you're trying to go. Once there's that check that's been kind of either implemented by them or by us, we're doing a similar process and saying, okay, we're going to add a whole bunch of value on the front end. We're going to do something to make sure that you're left better off. And then we're looking to say, is it revenue growth you're chasing? Like, we just got to pour gasoline on this thing. Maybe they have revenue growth, but they could be better in customer success or profit. Or maybe they've got rocket ship growth and they need help resourcing up. In any of those three scenarios, they tend to be the cycle that second stage and third stage entrepreneurs are facing, is one of those things they're pressing on. And then when they get it, it puts pressure on the others.
Sure. So then explain how then I look at that 90-minute meeting.
Yep.
We have a couple emails back and forth. Now, when does the sale come in? When you say, hey, if you want to proceed now, I can't continuously give you value like this. Like, what happens next? Explain the pipeline of your sales process.
Well, at this point, typically these are coming in with referrals from me. So usually my clients have sort of pre-sold, but
Sure.
assuming it's let's just say for net new, what usually is happening is we do that 90-minute meeting, and if they get it, they usually roll pretty quickly. They're like, yep, that sounds exactly like what I need. And what they'll do is the benefit is there's a mental commitment I ask for. In fact, I won't move forward unless they have a mental commitment of about 2 years, but it's completely devoid of a financial commitment, which is in all the things that we do, we show up, we deliver value. And if we don't deliver value, we don't get paid. So it's a very easy way for them to say, hey, that sounds amazing, but I'm not quite sure. I want to make sure that this is going to give me value. Great. We can actually show you, and we'll put our money where our mouth is.
So just explain that in more detail, though. When you say you have to show up to get paid, like, what does this really mean? Like, I'm a business owner, so I'm trying to understand it myself.
Sure.
Like, I come to you with Al and say, hey, here's the check whatever the finish line where we have to get to in 6 months. Like, but I'm not writing you a check every month until the finish line, or I am every month.
No, you might choose to pay every month because that's easier on cash flow. We're flexible in that way.
Yeah.
But the idea is really, we're going to be very clear with what we're going to provide. And that might be a story. And this gets into one of the things we help clients do, is we're going to be very clear about what the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story look like, even if that means over the course of multiple years. Throughout those story points, or the mile markers along the way, that we build in so that people say, hey, we're making sure you're here. Did you get value?
Sure.
As long as you mentally say, yep, I'm game. We're going to do our first day, and I'm operating completely at risk. You could leave that day and you say, it didn't really work for me. Okay, great. We shake hands and we go on our way.
So you're building in a percentage of the revenue then, so you have more upside. Like, I'm just trying to understand, like, if you're not flat rate, right? You're coming in and saying, hey, your business is doing 10 million of revenue. We're going to get it, in 6 months to 12.
Yeah.
So because of that, and these are the profit margins, obviously you're diving deep into their business, then we're going to deserve part of that growth rate. Like, I'm just trying to.
So we've had some clients who've done pay for performance. That's not typical. But I like that from an alignment of incentives.
Sure.
Right, Warren Buffett, show me the incentives, I'll show you the
Of
action.
course.
But generally, it's a flat fee, and I'm just saying they're paying it out based on them receiving the value. They're not paying it proactively to the point where it's like I've signed a contract and we have to now negotiate how we're going to have an out clause. They have a permanent, ever-present out clause. You're not getting your value, you don't pay.
Gotcha. I got you. This is I get it now. Kevin, you get it? So
Yeah.
pretty much we could hire him and then say that if you Adam Center, he could hire you, right? And be like, okay, we need more donors. Get this done 6 months. We need 10 million. You don't get that 10 million, right? Then you go, I'm done, right? Simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've worked with nonprofits. I mean, if you've got a group of people who are trying to get something done, generally speaking, you need some kind of accountability structure. Who's going to do what? You got to have some kind of aligning principle about where you're going, and it's very similar. Some nuances in the nonprofit world, but same
Always.
concept for sure. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's take a quick commercial break to hear one of our sponsors, and then we get back. We're going to jump to our What's Hot segment of the show.
Join the fastest growing community of professionals on the internet with OWL. Access new networks and otherwise unreachable professional contacts through the one-on-one call feature on the app. Scroll through the list of available professionals and join them for a quick call to build rich connections, expand invaluable relationships, and to broaden your professional landscape without needing lofty referrals. OWL. We bring vetted pros to your doorstep 24/7 on demand. Join our community by signing up at owl.com today.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank. As a reminder, catch all these amazing episodes up on our website, shrimptankpodcast.com. If you want to catch the live stream every single week, just hit up any of our social feeds, and we are live at Shrimp Tank Boca. And of course, we're one of the most unique shows that our guests join the OWL app that I'm the founder of. And what they do is they make themselves available at some point after this episode for 30 minutes or more, and you could chat with them one-on-one and really discuss anything that we talked about during today's episode. We had other guests pitch, others collaborations, and then of course join forces with them. So OWL's all about connecting, which is what everything in business is all about, right? What we're discussing today. So Ben, on this segment of the show, it's called What's Hot. We're gonna jump into a topic, dive deeper into why you think it's hot for your industry. So we're going to talk a little bit about marketing. We haven't talked about that yet, right? Most people in your shoes fail, right? Very simply, they can't get enough meetings, right? If you don't get enough meetings, it doesn't matter that you went to Duke, right? Doesn't matter if you went to Harvard.
Often
right?
it hurts.
Most of the time it does hurt,
Yeah.
right? Because people overanalyze the simplest thing of getting meetings, right? Top of the funnel. And actually, when I look at my industry, financial services, most people that went to the Ivy Leagues fail, right? Because they don't have the personality skills to go up to people and have no fear to say, hey, we should sit down because I believe I could help you with blank or blank or blank. Right. So in your world, I guess, what are the hottest ways to get meetings, right? Minus word of mouth, because we already said that's one of the hottest ways we know. But other ways, what are the hottest ways to get meetings?
Yeah. So the first is, and I think we talked about it before, is be genuinely helpful. I mean, the people who I see succeed in professional services are the type of people who are finding ways to be helpful that are creative and frankly, genuinely impactful.
But before that, right? You got to be helpful, but you need someone first before that. Like, is it going to a networking event and being helpful? Is it speaking at FAU, for example, when they have events? Is it, you could go on and on with how to network, of course, but what are you doing, or maybe your first 5 years in the business, like what did you do to get those meetings week to week? Because most people can't even get 2 meetings a week, right? They literally like do everything they can, or they camp out in front of Starbucks sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I'm going to do a variant of your word of mouth. You'll tell me if I have to come back. The first is ask for help. I can't believe how many people don't ask for help when they're starting out, and they might ask for help sort of in a roundabout way. But I think in your world,
They ask for a sale.
right. They're asking
Really
for,
ask for-
but even people like friends. Hey, here's who I'm looking to meet. Do you know anyone like that? If not, it's okay. We're still going to be fine. That's number one. Number two, if people are really clear about who they're trying to get to, you can go deeper as opposed to wider with that outreach. So I have a good friend, Z Ali, and he ran a promotional products business, and he would basically find out his like super top 100 dream 100
Yeah.
clients and go after them, figure out what they like based on their LinkedIn, and send them an outrageous like sometimes Jenga blocks that were like 6 feet tall with the company logo. Be like, we can't wait to knock down, you know, barriers for you, or send them a customized baseball bat. We can't wait to hit it out of the park. That's going to cost a little more money, but that's certainly going to get noticed a lot more than your 437th LinkedIn request.
Okay, I'll give a tip out here. No one's doing this one.
Oh, let's hear it.
Just go on Amazon and send people cheap shit. Most stuff is under $10 for free shipping.
Yep.
Right. So literally, if you want to do that strategy, right, like it's a home run because you find what they like on Amazon and you can find a product for under $10, and it's the thought that counts. Right. So often people are lazy sending direct messages. No one reads this stuff anymore because people get too many spam direct messages, too many spam emails. Like Kevin, who I'm sitting here, gets like 500 emails a day that are solicitations because they're trying to infiltrate him to get into FAU to solicit their products, right? So he consistently just has to filter everything, and everything starts blending together, and it's even hard for him to look at the real ones that are opportunities because they blend together so much. And I have the same problem, right? Running multiple brands at once. But if someone sent me a package in the mail, like how often do you get a package in the mail? To your,
with
to
my
your,
wife.
To your office, right? Like,
Oh, okay.
right. Like,
Yeah, I was going to say that
A lot.
that you haven't ordered.
Yeah,
you haven't ordered.
Yeah,
right? So you do that, and like all of a sudden, there's an email that gets deployed through Amazon if you do it the right way.
Yeah.
People will note on the shipping thing, and then all of a sudden, like then you send the email, you'll get a way higher response rate.
Totally.
Right.
Totally. And I think you actually are onto something that I really have found helpful, which is like, if you're going to reach out in multiple ways without being annoying. Hey, I just left a message, send a text to go along with it, right? Hit them with a gift. It's about depth, I think, because it's such a noisy world. It's so hard
noisy
to cut through. So yeah, I think you're totally spot on.
Yeah.
How many messages do you get, Kevin? You do get a lot of these, don't you?
Oh yeah. Maybe. I mean, I don't really log in a lot, so it's hard for me to say.
Don't even log in. See that out there? Like you guys are sending messages, you don't even log in.
Yeah, no. If you're savvy enough, my email's public. And I'm pretty good at that to the extent I can be. But yeah, we love doing creative stuff. We had one of our companies in the accelerator that they really needed this relationship, like a B2B thing, not necessarily a customer. This guy couldn't get the CEO to kind of email him back. And this is something I've done sparingly, but if you really want somebody's attention, you can kind of get it. And, you know, we have all these apps and all these delivery things. You can send stuff anywhere. People always think about sending stuff to yourself, right? Like, let's get dinner tonight. You can send that stuff wherever you want. So we came up with a plan that was, we sent the entire office, it's a relatively small office, donuts and coffee.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I get called, text, and emailed, and we're like, can you get back to me now? Enjoy breakfast and coffee for you and your staff.
Right. Right.
He called him right back.
Yeah.
And we sort of got that thing going. I also like your tips about being specific, right? So I teach a lot of seniors. I teach actually exclusively juniors and mostly seniors.
Wise choice.
For a reason. And so many of them are looking for jobs. And as we heard last week, and I've just noticed anecdotally, the job market's tightening up a little bit, especially in specific sectors. Some sectors are still really good, actually. But generalists are going to have a little bit tougher time. And one of the things that I encourage them to do is, you know, they'll say, I'm looking for a job. And they'll say, what? You know, I have a lot of connections. And they'll say anything. And I'm like, well, then you're going to find nothing.
That's right.
Like you need the same way as you're looking for, you know, leads or clients for your job, especially like a first job or an entry level job. Like, no, you're better off picking a job, like a very specific job. And I mean, company level, all the specifics. So then you can find out all the people now on the internet who are exactly involved in it, right? The hiring manager, the HR manager, the recruiting people. You can figure out who all the players are, and you can make a really kind of valiant effort to get that job. And that has the reciprocal bonus of typically impressing the person. So then it's like, even if they do have a lot of applicants, it's like, yeah, this person really wanted like this job. That kind of means a lot. Like the likelihood that they turn over pretty low. Like they just went for this job instead of every job. And a lot of them have a hard time doing that. But I tell them, like, you got to get really as specific as you can, as opposed to, yeah, anything's good. I'm flexible. Like, I like that attitude, but it's not an effective strategy. It's a great attitude, but it won't work out well.
Yeah. Yeah. It inadvertently, we're talking about three things that we at our teams happen to specialize, and I'll use them in context. Talking about marketing, we help people understand marketing. One of those things is who we specifically talking to, right? Just like you said, get really, really specific. The second is, how do you create magic moments? Well, in this case, the magic moments for the person you're trying to get in front of, maybe not a current customer, but someone who you want to buy into your vision, hire you, right? Buy from you, what have you. And it's pretty simple. If you can't think of some good solutions, you're not the most creative type. It's not coffee and donuts for the use AI.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. You don't
use
have
AI, man. You don't have to be that
and
creative
if the
anymore.
AI is not creative enough, just ask it to be more creative.
Seriously,
like,
right?
It'll do whatever you want.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think by putting all those three things together happens to be a passion, and you can use it in whatever setting: nonprofit, job hunting, sales, prospecting, and so on.
Okay, so let's talk about growing a business for a second, right? You step in, and to you it's the same problems all the time,
Sure.
right? You go in and they think their problem's unique, but you come in and you're like they don't have a CRM, right? Then the next thing, or they have a CRM and they're not using it to its capacity. Then you go down the chain and you're like, marketing, you find the holes, right? So let's just talk about what are the hottest things, I guess, when you step into a business that you could fix quickly, right? Certain things take a long time,
Sure.
right? Like, certain things with like the accounting and the financials,
Sure.
the way they structure their business can be a lot more complex. But there's times I'm sure that like you want to show value immediately, right? The first 6 months, a $10 million business, you want to get to 11 million, 12 million quickly.
Yep.
So what are the hottest ways that you step in and you can show that value?
I don't know how hot it is, but I will say it's definitely elemental. In other words, like oftentimes people think I have a such and such problem and this software is going to solve it for me, or this AI tool is going to solve it for me. And those are the hot ones. And those actually sometimes get people in the wrong direction because they're thinking about it from a tech perspective instead of a business opportunity perspective.
Sure.
One of the first things we do is say, are we all trying to do the same thing here? Or are you going in a direction that's different than me? If you wanted to talk about donuts and coffee for the rest of the podcast, and I wanted to talk about let's say gumdrops and butterflies, we might be able to overlap, but chances are it's not going to be a good conversation. It's the same thing with business strategy. So the first thing we do, and it blows my mind, is like people don't really know who's accountable for what. They don't know what they're trying to do. So why does it matter what they're doing? And they don't know what their expectations of their team are supposed to be. So once we give that a little bit of reflective,
it's not like leadership. And just kind of like where's the mission of the company and everyone working with the brand and kind of understanding from all elements. Is that what?
Yeah, but the problem that I get a little triggered when I hear leadership. So I'm a big believer in leadership. All I translate that is helping other people be inspired to go on a certain path.
Sure.
But it can sound so kind of like nebulous. We're not talking about high concept things here. We're talking about saying like, what are we doing this week? What are we doing this month, this quarter? And then how does that ladder up to the year and 3 years and 10 years in the future? So the thing that I'm doing today is actually getting me towards where I want to go, as opposed to kind of scattershot, shotgun approach.
So reverse engineering it.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, you say you wanted to go up by $2 million, but show me the top of the funnel.
Right.
In my business, the top of the funnel, right, in financial services, we were talking about firefighters earlier. It was very simple. I have to go into more firehouses. Right. The more firehouses I went into, the more people I spoke to. The more people I spoke to turned to more meetings in my schedule.
Simple.
More meetings in my schedule turned into more sales. More sales turned into more long-term clients. More long-term clients creates, a pension for me one day, and in that industry, because it's recurring revenue, less commissions where you have to run around all the time finding a new opportunity. Right. So I completely understand what you're saying, because I teach people that with OWL actually. OWL actually is the beginning of the funnel. And everyone wants it to be the end of the funnel. Like people just call me for my expertise and talk to me and pay me $1 million and hire me. I'm like, that's not how this works, right? You have to go out there and make outbound calls and introduce yourself, show your value, and then more people will work with you inside OWL and outside OWL if you do it the right way. but people always blame who? The platform.
That's
They
right.
don't look in the mirror and hold themselves accountable, because Owl's a tool no different than LinkedIn,
Yeah.
right? I could take a survey and 10 people, there's 3 that say LinkedIn's amazing. The others say 7 of them say it's absolutely horrible.
Mhm.
Like, but why is it horrible? Right? They're just not using the tool correctly. Right? If done correctly, all tools, have pros and cons. And when we're speaking about this, I just think it's all about the top of the funnel. You're right. Most businesses don't take a step backwards and think about that activity. Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can fix other stuff once you have the activity.
Right.
Right. Then all of a sudden you can fix the systems and the people around the systems. Right. But without the activity at the beginning, you're screwed. You can't grow.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I said those 3 things before, there's a reason we started with revenue growth. If you can't get dollars in the door, you can't get people on board. You got a really amazing product, but no one's doing anything with it. It's worthless.
All right, I got one last quick one here. I am guessing, given your relationship with your stepbrother, that you were probably consulted, advised, maybe worked closely on, his recent acquisition. So I'll ask you, in terms of buying a business, what's hot?
Man, we are experiencing the greatest wealth transfer right now ever, and the greatest transition of boomer businesses, for a hot term, into real opportunities for people who are looking to buy. And I think there are two answers to that question. Most immediately, there's a ton of money funding businesses. There's probably more private equity money, I believe, than there ever has been before.
Yep.
You've got to put that money somewhere. So if you buy a business, there's a great exit opportunity down the line. And from a kind of old school nature, a lot of people are retiring and getting out of their businesses, which creates unbelievable opportunity. For us, this is really to show him as an operator, because our mission is not just that we can have some effect on our own lives, but we want to replicate what happened with him many times over. I am 100% sure, and you talked about before about Ivy Leagues and Duke. I couldn't agree more. If you're looking to hire someone in an entrepreneurial business, chances are you want someone with street smarts. You want someone who's going to be hungry, in some cases, literally, that they're actually looking, and they want to either pay for their beer money for the bar. They're not going to sit back. They're not going to pontificate about why it's so important. They are going to come in every day, be grateful for an opportunity, and do an unbelievable job.
Yeah, I would, and going back to student listeners and those on the job market, like when founders and owners doing the podcast, running all the things I run, come to me and they say, I need somebody, I'll sometimes ask about the specific technical skills, financial, accounting, whatever. Almost all business owners will say, Kevin, I need somebody good. And I know what that means. They know what that means. It doesn't mean, well, did they major in management or did they major in marketing? They know what it means. I know what it means. I teach the students for 15 weeks. I know who it is.
Yeah.
And I ask a few questions. Next thing you know, somebody's placed and then everybody's happy. And that's how I can consistently keep doing that, because that's it. They'll teach them what they need to do to do the job.
Yeah.
That part's fine. And I couldn't agree with you more on the other part. I'm betting on it. So I'm glad to hear you say that. One of the things we are building out at the Adams Center here and through executive education is going to be a new kind of advanced high-level training program focused on ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition. 3-day seminar offered right across the street at executive education, really focused on people who want to acquire a business. And then it's an interesting bonus experiment, because it's really the other side of the coin. We're also going to be inviting people who are interested in selling their business.
Oh, nice.
So we'll get them all in the same room, cover the topics, everything you need to know, because there are going to be a ton of opportunities over the next decade. It's projected that 12 to 20 million businesses are going to be sold, because they are owned by those baby boomers. Popular media calls it the silver tsunami, but that should be on people's radars. And sometimes you'd be surprised how little cash you need to buy a relatively large business.
Oh, yeah.
With the availability of SBA loans, like people think, well, I can't buy a $2 million business. And it's like, well, do you have $60,000? And they're like, wait, what?
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably get that done, depending on your credit history, your willingness to sign, the terms of those kind of notes. But like, you can buy a pretty attractive business, and there's going to be a ton of them for sale.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be more for sale than are going to be sold.
Yeah, oh, for sure. For sure. Can I ask a question about that first part before we wrap here? So the story in my head when you're describing good is ideal team player, hungry, humble, smart. What, is that kind of the rubric you use for your entrepreneurs as you're thinking about people to give them, or what for you is really the key characteristics you're looking
Yeah,
for?
I mean, I guess it would be that, but just, relatively aggressive, proactive,
Yeah.
responsive, dependable.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things.
Yeah.
And I'll do tiny things just to check. I mean, I hire people for the center too, as
Right.
well. And I always find them jobs because I hire the same people that I'm going to have placed somewhere really good, right?
Right.
I'm going to look for the best job for them when they're done because sometimes I don't have that much money to pay them when they work for the center. But, I send them an email at a real random time of day and see how long it takes to get back. I'll assign them something and give them no instructions whatsoever about like, hey, well, here's what the end needs to be. I don't really have time to go through the steps. And just the little tiny things I'll do throughout a semester. And by the end, I'll figure out like, they're pretty good. Or in, some instances, like, well, this person's amazing and completely autonomous, very responsive, very dependable. Let's get you in here, and then what job do you want? Because I can probably get you about anything.
Yeah. Awesome.
You're only connected to 300 past guests on this show, right?
Yeah,
You think about it, like, you have both ends. The students who need opportunities, but also all the business that we interview always have the same problem. They always come to me. They send text message, emails like, "Hey, Jason, you know anyone good that wants to be an intern?" Or, "Hey, Jason,
Yep.
no one graduated. We have a fill this position," or know someone in general. Right? There's opportunities everywhere that open up, and businesses really struggle with finding the right fit. Right? They get a gazillion resumes come in, but like you said earlier in the show, it's like people are just sending the resume to 1,000 different brands and praying, and then all of a sudden, like the other business then struggles to figure out which ones are the right fits, and nothing's better than one that's hand delivered.
Yeah.
Right. And my tip, and I think I mentioned this before the show, is like, if you want an internship, if you want an intern for your brand, sorry, just reach out to Kevin. Kevin will bring you into the classroom setting, and lots of times he needs to fill not positions, but opportunities where entrepreneurs come in, speak to his classroom about a specific topic, and then at the end of that, you just say, "Does anyone want an internship?" And lots of students then will raise their hand who are interested in your brand, and there you go. You filled your internship position, versus just putting it up on these platforms like Handshake, which then you don't know who's good or not.
Yeah.
Everyone could fake it, and then they don't show up, they don't respond to you. So that's always something that I've done in connection with FAU in Kevin's class or others as well. We're going to take a quick commercial break to on our sponsors, and then when we get back, we're going to jump into the fifth segment of the show.
Awesome.
This episode of the Boca Raton Shrimp Tank is brought to you in part by the Florida Atlantic Adams Center for Entrepreneurship, where we teach everything you need to know about starting and growing a business. We do that in a couple different ways. Right now, we are just about to kick off our fall entrepreneurship boot camp, 8 weeks of fast-paced, practically oriented education. We also have applications open for our Veterans Florida Entrepreneurship Program, the 2 later stage cohorts, which will kick off in the spring. Also, keep an eye out for some fun networking events and great opportunities to connect with the entrepreneurship ecosystem down here in South Florida.
Okay, Ben, this segment of the show is called Plead the Fifth, right? So if you plead the fifth more than 2 times, we're going to tell our producer to not air this episode. Okay, so be careful, because you're going to want this episode aired. There were so many valuable tips, and you want the content, of course, because content is king these days. So let's see, plead the fifth. Let's talk about a story. Tell us about a business where you try to help them and they wouldn't listen. They were just stubborn, right? A lot of business owners are stubborn. Their ego is attached to certain, recommendations that you're providing to them, and they don't take it, and it's a problem, right? So tell us a story and be careful, or plead the fifth, because that entrepreneur might be listening out there and be like, "No, that's not the real story. he was wrong, right? Tell us a story about what happened.
Yeah, I'll keep it real. So two stories come to mind. One was a positive end, and one was probably less positive. The positive one was one that I just think of: husband and wife leadership team, super big business, like 1,500 people in that business.
Okay.
And on our first day of working, tensions are getting slightly higher, but that's normal, right? We're deciding on where they're going to go. And the wife locked herself so we were on the 42nd floor of One Penn Plaza, massive, right above Penn Station. And, busy floor. She locked herself in the women's bathroom, and I had to kind of hostage negotiate her way out. And I'm happy to say that business grew and was massively successful. That's the not version of it. That actually ended up being okay. The probably less one is more common. I think a lot of times EOS, any system like it, it's about first principles. It's about doing some basic things really, really well. And when people start to play with those principles and try to make it their own, if it was like JSON operating system, I like this, but I'm going to do that. My mentor says like, I'm going to do your diet. I'm going to do only the cheat days. Right. So I think that those are the ones where
corners.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that you have to do it exactly like the book. This is not a page turning opportunity here. This is more like understand the principles, understand to play the chords, and then we can create jazz.
Okay, Kevin, he didn't plead the fifth on mine. Is your shot. Get him plead the fifth.
Well, he started a ton of stuff and dabbled in all sorts of things. So what was your most costly or embarrassing failure?
Tell us the amounts too.
Oh,
how much money did you
lose? Oh God. So I said there's dozens. Like I think of in my past growing up as a teenager, like launching businesses. It's like that scene in Lion King where they're looking over and they're like, where the light goes, you don't go. And it's the elephant graveyard. It was my business graveyard. I came up with the stupidest ideas. Most costly, I think
it must have not been that bad because usually the person knows right away.
Yeah,
and then
like 1.5 million.
Yeah, I don't
developed, a beverage. Like beverages have high failure rates. And technology play.
I could say the most painful one, or one of the most painful ones. I was part of the startup competition, and it was like when you're just a little too late. That was costly to me emotionally, where we had started this business idea called Hey Could Ya, and it was basically around like if you need help with something, you might just go on this website and people will do tasks for you and they'll do it quickly like a rabbit.
It's funny you say tasks and rabbit.
So about like literally 12 hours before we were set to pitch, and we were so excited about this business, someone sent us an email that we've been talking to them. They're like, hey, have you seen this thing? I was like, oh, that's pretty good. We're screwed. So I it's sort of like if I had only done it a little bit sooner, what could have been. But yeah, for me, it used to be a death by 100,000 cuts more so than some kind of momentous crash and burn, at least as far as I can remember.
Okay, I'll make it plead the fifth. You've had a lot of business partners. Name the one business partner you looking back was the absolute worst. Name his name publicly or plead the fifth. or plead the fifth.
Oh, come on, man. Dude,
just say the words. Say I plead the fifth.
All right, so I'm going to say this is the worst one, but
his name.
It was my fault. I'll say what it is. And he's a very successful entrepreneur now. His name's Kenny Gould.
Kenny, sorry.
No, he's
didn't plead the fifth.
Great dude. But I was classic visionary, had a million ideas, and it was like, hey, I'm going to have all the ideas. You're going to do all the work. And that, needless to say, ended poorly.
Well, Ben, thank you for not pleading the fifth, I guess. You made it through there. Sorry, Kenny. And thanks for joining us on the Shrimp Tank. Everybody out there, check our feeds. We're going to put Ben's information all over the subtitles everywhere, and connect with them on Owl, connect with them on LinkedIn and Instagram. Take care, everybody. We'll be back next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Bye.
Thanks.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's sink or swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving